Committee of this committee, the gentleman from California, Mr. Sherman, for 3 minutes.
Thank you for holding these hearings, Mr. Chairman. I believe that CISADA and its implementation is the most important work for us to do this month. I think that we need to see even more enforcement of existing law and the adoption of new statutes. I hope that later this month or early next year, we consider the Stop Iran Nuclear Program Act, which would strengthen the sanctions still further. In addition, I should note that our colleague, Congressman Filner of California, has a bill with over 6 co-sponsors to take the PMOI off the terrorism list, and I hope that respect for our 106 plus colleagues that have co-sponsored that bill would lead to a serious consideration of the bill and hearings on it. So we have much legislating to do, just as our friends from the administration have much to do as well. Major oil companies from the West, for the most part, won't invest in Iran's oil sector or sell refined petroleum. This is a success. It is a success that comes perhaps a dozen years too late. At this point, we have to not only prevent investment in the energy sector of Iran, we have to prevent Iran from getting refined petroleum products. Had the executive branch of government decided to follow the law when it was passed over a dozen years ago, we would be in a much better position now. Now the only way to stop Iran's nuclear program is not only what is already being done, but the much, much more difficult job of preventing Iran from getting refined petroleum. And I'd point out that we are where we are not because there's been a radical change in State Department policy. The policy has been, since the Iran Sanctions Act was adopted, to follow the law only to the extent that its implementation did not offend any foreign government except that of Iran. This is, as described by our ranking member, the lowest common denominator policy. The good news is the lowest common denominator is now a higher number than it used to be, especially for Japan and Western Europe. And we have obtained a lot of cooperation, and it is now difficult for Iran to find partners to invest in its oil fields. We also ought to give credit, however, to the wisdom of our allies, but especially to the corruption and ineptitude of those who are running Iran, who make doing business with that country so difficult. As to the Stop Iran Nuclear Program Act, it would, for example, prevent or sanction the $5 billion euro sovereign bond issuance that Iran is now engaged. They've realized that they may not be able to get Western investment in their oil fields, so they feel they'll borrow the money and do the investment themselves. The way to stop that is with new legislation, which I look forward to taking up expeditiously. I yield back.